Bryce Young makes the Carolina Panthers unwatchable. The only way that you can watch Bryce Young play 4 quarters of football is if you're either drunk or you're high. Bryce Young is one of the worst first-round picks in the history of the NFL. He's one of the worst quarterbacks statistically that this league has ever seen. He's 29th in adjusted QBR. He's 29th in passer rating. He's 27th in completion percentage, despite the Carolina Panthers getting him 2 receivers that he requested. They get for him. Ted McMillan is frustrated with Bryce Young. He's overthrowing him in the middle of the field. He's throwing balls, skipping balls at his feet. Ted McMillan is ready for Andy Dalton to start and replace Bryce Young, because Bryce Young is holding back Ted McMillan. Imagine how good Ted McMillan would be right now if he had somebody like Lamar or Patrick Mahomes throwing him the football. He could easily be leading the NFL in receiving yards right now. But with how bad Bryce Young is, Ted McMillan, he's only regulated to getting these 5 and 10-yard slants, because Bryce Young has a noodle arm. The Carolina Panthers are not compromising Bryce Young. They drafted 2 receivers that he wanted them to draft for him, Ted McMillan and Xavier Legette, and he's not good enough to get them the football. We saw Andy Dalton last year come out and light up the Las Vegas Raiders. And then Bryce Young comes in after, and, he has a little bit of some flashes in the pan that give you a little encouragement to give him another season to see if he finally has put it all together. But it looks like Bryce Young's little miracle run or Cinderella run after he got benched last year was nothing more than that. Because now we have all the evidence of what Bryce Young is, and that's one of the worst starting quarterbacks in NFL history. He is not good. Eventually, you can only blame so many things until you have to just accept that Bryce Young just doesn't have what it takes to be a good quarterback in the NFL. The only team that Bryce Young plays good against is the Atlanta Falcons. For some reason, the Atlanta Falcons always bring the best out of Bryce Young. That's Bryce Young's Super Bowl. Hell, if the Carolina Panthers played the Atlanta Falcons every week, Bryce Young would be the best quarterback in the NFL. But when he plays everybody else, he's not good. And I've defended Bryce Young for a very long time, and I'm done. He's just not good. You got to get drunk or high to watch him play. With the amount of money that the Panthers have put into the offensive line, that they put into the receivers, Bryce Young should be much better than what he is. When you are a first overall pick, you're supposed to be a franchise changer. They don't just give you that label for nothing. You're supposed to be able to elevate a team that has certain limitations. Cam Newton is the prime example of what an ideal number 1 overall pick is supposed to be able to do going to a bad organization. They're supposed to be able to carry a team like how Cam Newton did in 2015 with Ted Ginn being his best receiver, and he won MVP. In spite of having limitations around him, not having the best receiving core, not always having the best supporting cast, but he was able to elevate that due to how good he was at his peak. Same thing with Andrew Luck. Same thing with Joe Burrow. Bryce Young doesn't have any of those qualities. Bryce Young needs this. Bryce Young needs that. Bryce Young just needs to go away from the Carolina Panthers. They just need to go ahead, fire everybody, and start over again. This is one of the worst draft picks in NFL history when you think about what the Panthers mortgaged to get Bryce Young. They essentially gave up Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore with a ton of other assets to get one of the biggest busts of all time. And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm shocked that Bryce Young is as bad as what he is. When he was playing at Alabama, he carried those Alabama teams. A lot of people think that just because you're playing for a team that's a big national brand, you automatically were in a great situation. When Bryce Young left for the NFL, Nick Saban cleaned house with his entire coaching staff because he said that they were too Bryce Young dependent. The Bryce Young that we saw at Alabama is not the Bryce Young that made its way to the NFL. And maybe that's because he's just too short to play the position. But whatever it is, he just doesn't have it. He already is limited in himself. He has to overcome the limitation of being a midget quarterback. And now you're asking him to overcome the dysfunctional Carolina Panthers? Panthers fans, just mail it in on Bryce Young. It's okay to admit that the brother just can't play. He's the worst quarterback in recent history as far as draft picks go. Johnny Manziel was better than Bryce Young. Bryce Young, the size, the limited arm strength, the limited athleticism, it's just too many obstacles that Bryce Young has physically to ever become a good quarterback in the NFL. At his best, he's a smaller version of Tua.